What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to finish up this fella here. Let me check something right quick. Now, hopefully the microphone is a little bit better than it was yesterday from a like a clipping perspective almost. I think my gate was set a little bit off, so hopefully that's not an issue today. Hopefully I'm a smidge louder also, but you know. And this should work exactly what I want it to do. So hopefully I can keep track of what you guys are saying in a little bit more timely manner, because my art setup is like this, so I can't really see anything over there. Anyways, so this guy, just for a slight update of where we are on him, I did hit him with a matte. He still has a tiny little bit of sheen, but that's fine. But it helped tone down quite a bit, and I did go back over with that bone white dry brush just to bring that back up a little bit, because the matte kind of dulled that down just a little bit, but we are still looking pretty good. I do think, and this is something I've definitely not ever run into as far as this color tone, it almost ended up too realistic in hue and not pushed dramatic enough in a like a cartoony value perspective, so that when it gets away, it kind of disappears. Whereas if I push that up a little bit more to brighten that contrast, it would be a little bit more obvious in a a normal sense. But I am really happy with the way that this color and all the kind of different values that ended up in this, where that ended up. So I don't hate it. He just overall ended up darker than I planned, but that's okay. So that's where we are with him. I am gonna go in with some blood on his teeth for sure. I still don't really know how I want to tackle this gauntlet, the handcuff thing. I kind of want to go gunmetal, maybe do a brown wash over that, or Nuln Oil, because I don't really want to go with a like a sponging for like a true solid rust. I kind of just want it to look a little dirty, so I'm not sure on that. And then this is the page that I was referring to yesterday. So this printed up, and you can see I did two tiny little tests. This is the Bony Matter speed paint, and that is Pallid Bone. I kind of like this a little better, but it's hard to tell. I'm going to do some dry brushing over the top of it just to help push a little bit. And then I just filled in the little bit of space around the edge with Armageddon Dust technical paint, and then primed it all black, and then just did a little bit of a white dusting over the top, which this is definitely to be determined in a color perspective. I don't know if I want to go speed paint with this, or if I want to go, because I have considered just base coating it all in this bone white and doing a brown wash. It would give me a similar hue to the claws here, but I don't know yet. But I think first things first is we deal with this gauntlet. And breaking, I think, some paint rule somewhere to not put metallics on a wet palette, but I don't know what I'm doing with a wet palette anyway, so Does anybody care? Probably not. So this is just game color gunmetal. We're going to thin this down. Again, hopefully one of these days I'm gonna find a good way to position you to see what I'm seeing and still be able to, you know, support my hands. I don't know if that's gonna be this or not, but we're gonna see. If I had left this, or say if I was doing this first, maybe, I would have probably base coated this in a kind of a rusty orange color and then dry brushed up heavy so it left, you know, a little bit of that rust in the recesses. But because I can't really do any dry brushing here without masking, we're just gonna have to do this manually.
It's done. Yes, Mr. Frodo. It's over now.
One thing I'm a little worried about is doing a regular wash over this gunmetal. I think it's going to matte down this gunmetal a lot, so I might have to do a little bit of, you know, pseudo dry brushing in a sense, just to hit a little bit of those flat surfaces, just to bring them back to a little bit of shine. I didn't really want this to look like it was just solid rust. I kind of just want it to look more like a dingy piece of metal more than anything. So probably not going to push the rust portion super far, just because that's not really the aesthetic that I am going for here. I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to do some Nuln Oil over this bracer, just because of how glorious known oil reacts with metallic things, but to be determined. My original plan was maybe to do known oil with, and then go back and kind of purposely do some like red brown in the recesses and some spots just to get a little bit of that rust effect, but it might look better just to do a full brown wash and then go back and bring back up some of that metallic a little bit. Just trying to make sure that we've hit all the spots here that need to be hit. Specifically around the outer edges of this gauntlet, but most of it you probably never really even notice, so I think that'll work. So we'll let that sit for just a second. I guess I need to decide if I want to do brown or mix this up. We could do brown, or we could just go straight for some known oil, but I just don't know. Because I think this is... What is this? I don't think I've ever used this. Maybe we should try this and just see what happens. I don't really know what it is. I think it's a little bit more like a reddish tint, which might actually work than the brown. Yeah, why not? I don't really know how much of this I'm gonna need. I don't really think I'm gonna need a ton, but give this a mix because I have never used this color ever, so make sure it's as mixed as it can be, relatively speaking. And we're gonna put it in our trusty foot. So this is Sepia from Game Wash. And this is either gonna get us kind of where we want or not at all. What's up, Odd Tiny? Yeah, let's just slather this boy with a little bit of this. Kind of looks greenish, but this color is dirty. I guess that's the goal. Yeah, I'm gonna do that with a tiny brush, that's for sure. Hopefully, which it doesn't help, some of you I'm sure noticed that yesterday the microphone that I was referring to potentially dying absolutely died. So like the last few minutes of that stream were just silent, so I apologize for that. They are nice and charged up today, so hopefully that is not a problem. And hopefully you could actually see what I'm doing because I extended this guy out some more, so hopefully I don't end up out of frame as much as I was yesterday. Just gonna get this all over, and then if I need to, I can dry brush a little, or just, you know, hit a little bit of it to get it a little bit more of that metallic. But this is very much so the color that I was looking for. Which right now looks a little bit bronze, but hopefully once that sets and we bring this back down a little, we'll get a little closer to where we want to go. And while that dries, oh yeah, we need to figure out what we're doing with this. I kind of want to just go the safe route of bone white and then dry brush over it, but we're gonna go the long route of, sorry, you can hear that, that's this mixer. We are gonna go the long route of coating this whole thing in this paint, which is unfortunate because I don't have a lot of this and I love this color, but it's probably gonna take a bunch of it. So again, this is bony matter. And while that bracer's drying, we're just going to give this guy a little bit of a test and just slather this all over. This might end up being too dark, but again, since there's going to be some dry brushing over top of this, it might not matter. We'll just have to see if we end up with a good base tone to work from. If I end up having to, I will just have to base coat this whole thing in bone white and then wash it in brown to get a little bit more saturation back, but we'll see. Just depends on kind of how this dries. And now the plan for this guy, which you may, honestly, I don't know what's happening this weekend. You may or may not see him in a battle report live Saturday. I think that's still up in the air, but the plan is to try to slot him in a similar vein to the way that the Morab works in Warcrow, which is a new game, and him to be a chaotic neutral third for both factions, and then he'd kind of function like a secondary objective. So I don't want to proxy him for anything, because there's not really anything that I feel like a Rancor would proxy super well in place of. I mean, maybe, I don't know, I guess you could maybe proxy in like a dewback. If you wanted to use like Boba Fett riding a Rancor, maybe to work in the shooting bit, but I feel like a Rancor would be a lot more deadly than the dewbacks. So he's going to be kind of a third-party secondary objective, I think. That is the plan. Now, how I'm going to do that, I don't really know. But I enjoyed the rules for Warcrow a lot, actually. And I kind of wanted to bring a little bit of that into this. So I'm not gonna lie, actually, that sepia wash tone just over that dark metal, I like a lot. But I also still kind of feel like it could have a little bit more. I'm kind of tempted now with the shades that are there, once that fully dries, because it isn't, to do some Nuln Oil over parts of it anyways. So we'll have to see. But let's set this guy to the side, which that does look really dark, but it's an iterative process, you know, so all good. Now I'm just stressed out that my microphone's gonna die and I'll never know. That's all right, especially because I just go through periods of not talking, so I'm like holding my breath. Let's go ahead. I don't know how much of this I want to put, like on his teeth. Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe on his tongue, even like a little bit on his tongue. But like on his claws, maybe. Do I want to splatter any on him? I'm not sure, but we'll start with the teeth and probably a little bit on the claws. I think it would be cool, I don't have any, to do like the UV resin and cure it to get like the stringiness on him. But, you know, one new thing at a time, I guess. And this True Blood, I went to get blood for the Blood God because I'd heard good things about that from somebody I know that does some miniature painting. And of course, my only hobby store that sells this kind of stuff never has GW products, ever. I'd assume because it's like the only store anywhere to speak of. So just about every color that I've ever gone to get, they don't ever have. And then I was told by a dude that was there that this was probably the closest second, and I haven't had any issues with it. It dries real glossy, and I don't know if it looks as thick, if that's the appropriate word, as like Blood God does, but it's pretty good. Oh. So again, this is the War Paint Effect True Blood. And we're just gonna get a little on his teeth and stuff. Now, I feel like this is gonna be really easy to overdo and easy to kind of not do enough. So I'm gonna try a little bit of restraint. That's possible. But, you know, how would he end up with blood on some of his teeth? He'd have to have blood on all of his teeth, right? And he'd probably have blood on his lips and stuff, you know. We'll see how that settles. I guess more than anything, this is an accent color for the whole thing. So I don't need to cover his teeth. The goal is just to add a little, almost like a little splash of color. So Put a little bit of this on his tongue. I may or may not regret this at some point, but we'll see. But how would he get blood on his teeth without it getting on his tongue? Whatever. Now, again, if he just ate someone with this hand, how would he not have blood on his hand? So, just gonna try to squiggle some of this on here. In some capacity, I guess we got to tell a story with what's actually happening here to try to figure out what's going on. Now, mess that up a little. Now, I don't know if I want to go super overboard with it like on his hands. I do kind of feel like it would be there a little bit. At least on, say, the inside of his hand, like he just finished chomping somebody out of his hand, maybe. So we'll leave that clean for now. I'm not going to do any splattering on him just yet. So I think that's pretty good. Just got a little bit on the inside of his hand. Okay. So this is dry enough for government work. Let's, do I dare do a little bit of, I think I do. Just a little, maybe. Do a little bit of a dry brush over this and then do the Nuln Oil just to bring back up some of these highs before we do anything. But I don't want to hit a ton of this. I gotta be kind of careful. I don't have a smaller brush, so we're just gonna use this. And again, this is just using that same gunmetal that we base coated it with. And I'm just trying to bring back a little bit of that shine, because I think that Nuln Oil plays super, super well with having a metallic counter. Again, I'm trying to be careful here not to hit too much else. And it's okay if it's a little dirtier on the bottom. Now we arguably could go a little heavier, but I think that's an okay kind of effect. Honestly, I could leave it right there and I would probably still be happy, but I am feeling Nuln Oil which doesn't help. I did not bring paper towels that I planned on bringing in here. Let's see. And this base is looking rather drab, so yeah, I don't know about that. We'll see. Anyways, I like that. But again, it's asking for it. Whether it's a lot, I don't know, but we're asking for it. And again, I'll explain this just so nobody's trying to figure it out. Yes, I cut this off because I'm an idiot. I didn't know any better. First Citadel paint I had, couldn't get it open, and then I opened it too far, and then I couldn't get it closed. I thought it was maybe like an anti-theft thing. Yeah, it's not. I figured it out. Don't worry. So we're gonna take some good old-fashioned Nolan oil, and we're just gonna go over this bracer. I don't know if I want to go over the whole thing. Probably should, just for uniform sake. We just want to hit some of these recesses. I'm hoping that this will accentuate kind of what's already here in a sense, but we'll see. I got paint all over my arm. I'm not paying attention. I don't even know where that paint came from. Which it's almost everything. All right, we're just gonna let that sit. Ooh. Ooh. Let's see. Wish this base would dry, because this dude, I think, is nearing completion. Might want to punch up the eyes just a little, so they get a little lost. I wish I had some gloss medium that I could just put specifically on the eyes just to help them out a little bit, but I do not. So I haven't really messed too much. Gloss medium, varnish, gloss, varnish. I haven't really messed too much with like individual little bottles of that stuff. And then there's times like this where I run into it where I'm like, oh, I wish I could gloss coat just this one tiny little bit, but oh well. let's do... Yeah, it's funny looking at that bracer. It has almost aired into the side of like a rose gold kind of coppery tint. That's very interesting. I do not. I haven't tried to get inks yet. I keep seeing it specifically with like having stuff glow, like running on like magic or in like plasma and stuff like that. And I keep wanting to, but that's interesting. I've never seen people use inks like that. I was planning. I just don't want it to look like he has white pupils. Like this eye, I think works well enough, but just the two little dots in that eye, I think, get a little lost. So I might just need to make that white in the left eye a little bit more dramatic. But all in all, especially the stomach, I really dig the way that this came out, even if it errs on the side of a little more realism and it gets a little lost. The actual like colors and tones and stuff that I ended up on the stomach worked out really well. It was a little weird doing a kind of like an upside down zenithal in a sense, because I prepped him for him to be like dark stomached and then like a more of a dust sand color, and I just changed direction completely and went with this lighter sun bleached-esque like tone and then darker on the top. So he kind of ended up inverted from where he was planned to end up, kind of intentionally, kind of not intentionally, but either way. Yeah, that bracer I think works pretty well for kind of what I wanted as far as a dirty metal but not like just covered in rust effect. So I'm pretty happy with that. Gets a little blown out in the light, and honestly I'm half tempted to go back now over the known oil with some of that sepia again, just in very specific spots, just to drive forward that color, that kind of tone in just a couple spots. And I might do that once that settles. This guy, on the other hand, dried with no color at all. So that's kind of what I figured. Now, I might use that just as a base and use some shitty craft paints and layer up some dry brushing that honestly might not be a terrible idea versus base coating the whole thing. Let's see. Brown in here somewhere. That's it. Oh, I definitely need paper towel or something. Let me grab that. Sorry if that deafened you in some capacity. All right, well, there was a dog in here. I don't know where she went. Okay. Oh. So these are the colors that I use on a lot of my Empire stuff, and I just kind of wet blend them into a big mess. So maybe we go something like this and just layer up a little bit of color and see where that gets us. Worst case, again, I can just base coat the whole thing. So it's really not that big of a deal. Do I have any of this stuff left? Use this brown color for a lot of the base coloring of the boards and stuff. It might be SOL on this. We'll use, got a smaller bottle anyways. Same paint, just a tiny bottle. Which I guess is old also, goodness. I don't use a lot of these all that often. There we go. And I'm just gonna pat some of these spots dry because I want them catching, but if they catch, whatever, I don't care. No, we're just gonna go all over. I don't really care where it ends up, to be honest. This color is not super visible. But as we layer up some of these colors, we might get somewhere, potentially. Okay. Now, some territorial beige from good old Walmart. Which, not entirely sure on this color palette. We're just gonna do it and see, because it can't be any worse than it was. Always concerned we've got too much on the brush, and then I always end up with not enough on the brush. I'm also kind of heavily putting this on as well, just because that first color was not super noticeable. But we are kind of getting toward a tan brown hue. I feel like I'm gonna need maybe even a final brush of that bone white over the tan that I planned on, just to push this a little bit more, because it's still rather dull in color, but that's all right. And we're gonna use this fella right here. Some more Walmart goodness. This color is very light, so we'll see if we end up needing something after this. Especially because we're blending in some of that old color. It might get toned down a bit. Let us see. We're still not seeing a ton. A little heavier. Just didn't want to do bone white with the brown wash and then it ended up just being the same color as his little toes. Wanted it to be a little different. Another thing I haven't tried is like pigment powder stuff, which I think would probably be pretty good for this, to get some of that dusty, deserty aesthetic in here. But up until pretty recently, I was kind of painting with completion in mind more than I was painting with learning or improving. I don't hate this, but I don't love it. I do think it works. It just needs a little bit of a tint, I think, like an orange, kind of like an orangish, brownish tint. I don't know. Another thing that would probably be good for inks, I think, because I could tint a little bit more than I would just cover. But I kind of wonder if I could get the same effect with speed paint through an airbrush. Do you mean like going for a colder environment of a tint rather than closer to a desert, or you mean cold as in color temperature? Because I'm kind of tempted to use I kind of wanted, wish I had some of them up here. Kind of like a Tatooine desert vibe, I guess. Which I don't hate it. And these suckers are going to go on afterwards, if that helps at all. That is definitely something I am slowly improving with, I guess. Is the color temperature difference between things. So like people talk about shading blue into shadows to opposite like a green skin or something like that. That kind of stuff I still just don't really fully understand. I kind of just go off my eyes, and that only gets you so far. So, because I feel like if I tinted this, I feel like I'm looking at it and it wants to be like orangish, more like that desert, like red sand. Not it's not red, but given how this stuff comes through an airbrush, I don't actually know if that would even work. I'm actually half tempted to put a wash over this, the color that it is, with this sepia shade, because it was kind of orangish. And actually, I'm gonna do a little baby test spot of this, because I still have some here, just to see. Test over here. And we'll see, kind of see where that gets us. This guy was kind of an experiment to do some airbrush base coating more than anything. Because again, everything that I've done has been speed paints for the most part. And until the Darth Vader video from like last week or whatever, that was the first model I'd ever fully base coated and layered in a traditional sense. And I think it came out pretty good, so I'm trying, like this guy like was a base of speed paint, and then I kind of went back in with some purposeful highlights, kind of like on the jacket and on the sleeves and stuff. So it's a process. I didn't do any highlights on the brown or anything. So again, I'm painting, I guess, more with purpose and experimenting. And I think actually this, I like the shade of that. And then I may go back over some spots with a with that dry brush, just to bring back a little bit of the color variation amongst the different parts, but we'll see. So again, this is that same sepia game wash color over the dry brush bits. And I'm just gonna slather this all over this. kind of I'm feeling some other like dark brown bits on this, just to have some diversity in color, maybe. I don't know. And while I have some of this out, I'm gonna actually put some more of this back onto this bracer. And this I'm just gonna pick out, I guess, some spots that I feel like I wanted in. No rhyme or reason, I guess. And while thinking about it, hit this eye a little bit. This little dot of paint is still good. It'll probably work for what I need it to. Yeah, I think that's better. I guess he kind of looks like he has white pupils, but he gets the point across. And that True Blood, I do like that paint. Dries nice and glossy. I do kind of feel like he's wanting to be splattered in the face a little bit, but taking into account what his scale and size is supposed to be, scale or like splatter and stuff at this point would make him look small because you wouldn't see it a whole lot. So I'm not going to do that, actually. Which I didn't think about that originally when I was thinking about doing some splatter. Oh, the joys of paint drying. Literally. Yeah, I think we're getting somewhere. I do feel like it kind of wants some dark brown. Like within some of these rocks, maybe. I just don't want it to look splotchy. So I kind of just need to shade some of the recess, but honestly, this color is kind of closer to what I was wanting. Now if it would just dry. Which it is a little more orange. smidge more orange to you guys than it is to me, but kind of tempted. Do I have? I don't think I really have another brown tone tuff that I could use. No. No. Kind of like them both, actually. I'll keep both of those in mind. And I will probably edit all of this down into more of a 20-minute short form thing over the next little bit, but we'll see, because at this point I'm gonna have 40 hours of stuff to go through, and honestly I just don't know if it is worth all that effort. So something, it's probably going to be a video coming in the next few days once I hammer out a little bit more of a plan. Let's see if I can't pat some of this excess away because I just don't need it. Kind of detailing a little bit of the plan going forward as far as what days certain things will happen and a little bit of scheduling and stuff. But something like this RANCOR, which was maybe not entirely in a 500 sub unique kind of thing to do, but kind of ended up being that. Something like this would probably be done off stream and done into a video separately, and then some more batch painting or one-offs and things like that might be done on stream. But again, I got to work all that stuff out because I have ended up very overwhelmed, to say the least, with the timing of things. So I need a little bit more structure, a little bit more of a consistent thing to deal with. So, but again, there'll be something coming about that stuff maybe a little bit later. Yeah. Like this. I kind of feel like it needs a little bit of a dry brush back over the top with the, well, yeah, maybe just a little bit on the top with this off-white sandy color. Just to bring back the tips of things just a little. Going definitely less on the brush than more. Which that wash is not all the way dry by any means, but I'm also not opposed to this one little spot just being a different color, just for the little bit of extra added diversity, to be honest. That might just do it. Okay. Yeah, we got a little lost there for a second, but that shade got me very close to the coloring that I was looking for. But now I feel like I don't know. I was gonna say I kind of feel like he needs some extra depth on the base, but to be fair, he kind of covers most of it, and the tufts might get me the rest of the way. Which we're gonna go with the trusty Elmer's glue dot method. Elmer's glue. Now I'm just gonna put these guys on, and then we'll see if we want to do a darker color. And we're just going to do these one at a time. These are adhesive. I always just put a little baby dot of glue just to help them a little bit. I haven't had any issues with them coming off, and honestly I've had a hard time getting them off when I redo some of these if I want to repaint some of them. So one thing I don't like about the Army Painter tufts, they do have a tendency to want to separate into a web. It's like the adhesive that they're stuck to on the paper is like way too adhesive, and it like fans out the thing, and that kind of sucks. Like half trying to keep in mind maybe using some of these greenish ones. I haven't really done that. I haven't really mixed green and brown on any of the desert stuff other than like comedically green stuff because I've got a problem. So let's get an idea of what we're gonna look like here. Use this little test subject guy. So if we were to just, I mean, that's a pretty desert green. I'll take it. Arguably, it looks more natural than the desert tuff does. So hey, whatever. It's gonna live here now. Want a big one somewhere. Maybe here. Actually, no, we're going to use Use one of these chonkers.
Who above all else desire power.
And I think we're gonna add some blood onto this base because I feel like it wants it. So here we go. One more little guy. I actually really like these green tufts. Yep. And then we're gonna add which also, I guess to be clear, that is winter tufts and mountain tufts from the army painter. And I think that green works really well. Yeah, honestly, given where this base was, where this base started, yeah, I was not optimistic, but this might just become a new, maybe not the way that I got here, but the idea with these two tough colors might just become a new standard for my Imperial stuff going forward, because they're all on deserty stuff, but I really like that color, whatever, you know what I mean. I like them colors together. Now he stands really want to just like splatter on this. But again, I don't really think it would look like that at this scale, because he's supposed to be rather large, so I don't know if you'd really be able to read splatter that well. But what I will do is maybe some sponge. Because regardless of the scale, looks a little rigid. And I kind of wanted to add a little bit more, so we might just have a grouping, and then maybe add some sponging backwards, like he walked a little bit and then dropped. Yeah, meatball is code for somebody's head or something. I haven't tried sponging anything with this blood paint yet, so whoa. Little much. Or this is like the trail of somebody that crawled away. Either way, wasn't good. I know that. Sure. Yep, why not? Okay. Now, is there anything else I want to do? This guy here. Kind of am okay with where he is, I think. I think we're almost in the home stretch. Let's get my chair out of the way. Get my big old thing of paint. Which brush am I looking for? This one will work.
Go back, Sam! Going to Mordor alone. Of course you are. And I'm coming with you!
Which also, this is a FDM printed base because I wanted this to be a more Legion-esque base model. The model that I bought obviously just had the sculpted base. So I just scaled up a Legion base and left it a similar or the same height and just changed the diameter. This is, I think, 85 millimeters. Just to attach the sculpted base onto. Dog back there making noise, cut it out. All right. Now, I'll go ahead and stick this guy down to his home and hold him for just a minute. While he sets. So, what the next model will be that will be painted, I could not possibly tell you. I am half intrigued to paint this again on a scaled up version of this model. Do I think I should do that? No. Will I do that? I don't know. I'm gonna wait till I play this dude and get him in to see if my idea or my concept of how he could be implemented will even work as a chaotic third party with like a beast hunter kind of victory point idea. If he'll fit into the new edition of the game in any way that makes sense, I don't know. Again, you might see that this weekend. I'm not sure. But that could bring in some other things. Another thing, if anybody's interested, I really want to paint some World of Warcraft miniatures. It does not seem like there's anybody out there that sculpts minis for WoW or with WoW themes, but especially with warcrow, you could easily slot some of those heroes in as proxies. Like if you wanted a Jaina mage model, you could easily just swap that out for the Frostfire Herald and it would be perfectly fine. Same thing with like the work heroes and stuff, you could easily slot them in. So I think there's potential for using them, but I also just think that they could be some cool models and be used in some interesting paint jobs. Honestly, that's why I bought Warcrow in the first place. So all right. Sweet. So this is where we ended after that. We asked. I did not know that my compressor was on. Relax. That scared the shit out of me. God. Anyways. So for those of you who were here yesterday, this boy, he looked like a wet meatball. Okay. He didn't look hot. But I am very happy with where we ended. I think that base came together super well. I like the blood on the bottom. I think it helps tie him to the base. I still really love his stomach tones. It's a shame can't see them all the time, but I know they're there, so that's something. I didn't really know where I was going to go with this bracer, but I think we ended up in kind of a region I wanted, a dirty, dingy, metallic-y kind of thing. So I'm good with that. The blood paint on the teeth I'm happy with. I'm glad I decided to do some on the right hand, because again, I think it just adds a little more to him. And then punched up the eyes just a little, just to give them a little bit more of a glint. They could use a little something else, I think, but all in all, I think they're all right. He's a little plain in color after the washes. Before the washes, he had a couple tints of brown, so like the very top of him, like the shoulders and the arch of the back to the head, were kind of a darker brown, and everything else was kind of a lighter brown. Now it kind of all got homogenized once the washes came in, but that's okay, because I'm still happy with the overall aesthetic that we landed on. I didn't plan on painting all these fins bone tan, that's for sure. So anyways, let's see if we can get a better look at this base. We ended up with, just because of the nature of how I painted the base, we ended up with some good shades of color in there. And then I think the tufts, as tufts do, just brought them all back. So I'm actually excited to see this dude down on the table, which, again, just for scale reference, he's bigger but nowhere near as big as, you know, he would be. So he should still look pretty imposing, I guess, on the table, which is cool, especially against single models. Now, you put him in front of a unit of 10 troopers, you know, I guess he loses some of that, but that's okay. I'm very happy with this, actually. Yesterday was a bit of a rough patch. I didn't really know where we were going to end up, but where we ended up, I'm very happy with. So I am, again, half inclined to see about painting them on a bigger scale, but I think we're going to not do that because that would be crazy talk. So we will be back later tonight. We're going to play some Once Human. If anybody cares about game-related stuff, we're going to be doing that later tonight. Potentially some Warcrow tabletop action down in the game room on Thursday. And then maybe Legion Saturday. I don't know yet. Again, be on soon talking about a general plan for some schedule stuff going forward for when this type of content is going to take place, when some of the tabletop stuff is going to take place, so that's on a more predictable schedule. So if you're interested, you can be here for that because you know when it's going to happen. But that is going to do it for this, 4-hour or long ordeal. I appreciate all of y'all who sat here through this whole thing. I think we ended up in a good spot, so I'm pretty happy. If you want more of a short form, how we got here kind of thing, there will probably be an edited down version of this coming down the road. But if you want the whole process, it's here. So if you haven't already, please do hit that sub button. It helps a ton. Hit the like button just so more people can see it. But until next time, I will talk to you guys later. Bye.
The power of the dark side.